Ladies and gentlemen, episode 28 of the Travel Bros podcast is here. We are talking Japan hotels. Every hotel in Japan you need to talk about, or you need to book. We're going to talk about it. You should be about it. We're going to talk about it. How about that? Japan is a crazy place. Japan is actually the first country I ever visited outside of North America. I went for work. Interestingly, it was 2006, let's say 2005. The Lost in Translation movie was pretty fresh out the gate. Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson. That whole movie takes place in a hotel we're going to talk about. So I have some good stories there. Funny thing is, 20 years ago, the hotel where the movie Lost in Translation was filmed, I feel like was the only real high-end luxury hotel. Now, mind you, I was in town staying in like a local Japanese hotel that was about 84 square feet at the time. I think the nicest hotel I ever stayed at was the Hilton in Shinjuku. So it's come a long way, but we're going to talk about some of these properties. I would say 90% of these properties have been built in the last 5 years. And so this luxury hotel boom is kind of one of the reasons I wanted to talk Japan. I think 2 of my hotels have opened in the last 12 months. So wow. It is pretty interesting. I'm going to go ahead and get started with my first property. It's an honorary property. You can't actually book it at the moment, so that is complicated. But it is set to
Can we book it? Even though it's not open yet? Can we book it? I think we may be able to.
Why don't you check that?
Yep.
How about this? You cannot stay there at this very moment because it is under major renovation. It's the Park Hyatt Tokyo. Now, this hotel is a little sentimental for me. I actually proposed to my wife at this hotel. We actually started our honeymoon at this hotel. So I have a lot of just all vibes here. Now, like I mentioned, the Lost in Translation movie was filmed completely at this hotel. They barely leave the hotel. And like I said, it's Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson. If you've never seen it, it's a great movie to watch. I used to watch it every time before we'd go stay at this hotel just to get a little vibe action back. One of the cool things about this hotel, it is in the top floors of Shinjuku Tower. It's a 177 room property. It evades me what floor it starts on at the moment. I want to say it's like the 41st floor and up. And one cool thing was this hotel was like restored, like imagine the most perfect restored classic car you've ever seen. That's what this hotel was like from the 80s. It's like green marble, green carpets, and the rooms were huge by Japanese standards. I think the smallest room you could stay in was 500 square feet. I stayed in like a 1,200 square foot suite here at the time, and it was just so cool. The spa was all this green marble that like no one has seen or ever thought about putting into a building since 1980. It was like so well restored, so well taken care of. The spa had those like really tacky lights that you'd see from the movies back in the day where it's like the vanity mirrors with like the exposed bulbs. Like it was just so 80s. But the cool thing was the last time I went there was 2019, and it still felt like a new property, which I felt was really cool. Now it's going under this huge renovation. They closed for almost 9 months. I expect the place to be incredible. The staff there was always on top, and couple things, and then Jamie will tell us if we can book it at the moment, but if not, it will be soon. You've got a 52nd floor penthouse. Then you have the New York Grill and Bar, which you have to visit. A lot of the movie is filmed there at the New York bar. I actually got to do New Year's Eve there one year, which was really cool. You have this huge view of everywhere in Tokyo. You got to see the fireworks. Hotel guests, they will generally find a way to let you in. You kind of go around there's like 2 lines. There's a hotel guest line and there's like a line for everybody else. And we kind of got fast tracked into there as well. Amazing food and beverage, just anything you want. It's walkable-ish to Shinjuku Tower. It is a bit far, but I mean, I think in Japan, you're just going to walk a lot no matter what. So that is my hotel. Can we book it at the moment? Is it close?
It does not seem to be bookable at the moment. It is set to reopen. It says October of 2025. So hopefully it will be bookable shortly, I would think, probably as we get closer and, that reopening date is confirmed. And I will say, I know we talk about Baha Mar a lot. One of my favorite employees from Baha Mar is actually the rooms director here now. So I'm really looking forward to opening and trying to get back there again because she was one of the people that made Baha Mar great. So I imagine that she will bring that to the Park Hyatt in Tokyo as well.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, the hotel to me is so perfect in my head they can almost only do as good as it was or worse, which is a little frightening, I will say. Just all the visuals, even unique things if you're walking through this hotel, the size of the hallways and the size of the ceilings, like it's so to us it doesn't feel like much. It feels very Western, but I mean, you can't touch either side of the hallway. And when you start thinking in Asian standards and size, I mean, there's places you're walking through that I feel like I could, my stomach touches both sides of the hallway, or you're walking sideways. So it's just really luxury at every end. There's so many huge glass walls. You can get gorgeous views of like Tokyo Tower. On a clear day, you can see Mount Fuji out in the distance, which is really nice. I also really enjoy Shinjuku as an area. So we're going to pin that one. That's my emotional impact for Japan. If you've never been to Japan, watch Lost in Translation. I think it's a great like starter introduction for Japan. I've been to Japan more times. I think I was looking at my flighty. I think I'm at like 31 times now or something like that. So yeah, I've got Japan pretty dialed. Another hotel that I do really like is the Conrad Tokyo. I'm skipping that in this whole episode because I'm going to stay there soon and do a full episode. So another hotel to think about. Jamie, what's your first property to start us off in Japan?
So I'm not doing any properties in Tokyo. So I'm going to start at the Park Hyatt in Kyoto, kind of sticking with this Park Hyatt theme. This is a property I actually stayed at last summer. So I guess summer 2024. It's a fairly new property. It opened like kind of right when COVID was happening. So opened in 2019. I was originally supposed to come and stay here back in 2020, like right when it first opened. But due to COVID, my whole Japan trip got pushed off and finally made it in 2024. But this hotel is probably one of the best run hotels I've stayed at, which this may end up being a theme in Japan. I think they just do a really great job with service overall. But this was a great property. Loved the location. It's a smaller hotel. It's only got 70 rooms. So it's really, I don't want to call it quaint, but it is a smaller, well-run, just really nice property. It is located right in the historic Higashiyama district. I may be saying that wrong, but that is like it's all the old streets with stands and shops on both sides. Like it is super picturesque, and this is right off the street. So when you're staying here, it is like super easy access to get to all this stuff. You can walk up through all the shops and stores and restaurants and kind of eat and shop your way through. And then at the top, there's this really big picturesque temple and like grounds that one morning I got up super early. I went up by myself. I walked through when everything was closed, got beautiful pictures, got to go through the temple, all that kind of stuff. So before the crowds got there. So that's really neat. So if you're staying here, you've got that. Rooms were beautiful. We came with the whole family. So we had a suite connected to a standard room. And I don't know exactly what it was called, but we were on like a ground floor. So we had an outside garden area that had little fountains and stuff going. So that was really, really beautiful. Fitness center was, I would say, fairly large for Japan hotels that I stayed in. So it was a really nice fitness center. The breakfast was fantastic. You have the option of doing a Japanese breakfast, like a traditional Japanese breakfast, or more Western breakfast buffet type thing. You do have to order the Japanese breakfast, I believe, a day ahead of time. If I remember correctly, it is like a Michelin-starred chef restaurant that does the Japanese breakfast. So if you're into that, it is definitely a must-do while you stay there. Highly recommend. Well, I'm not a fan of the Japanese breakfast. I'm not a big fish eater, so I didn't do it. But if you are, the Japanese breakfast is definitely a must-do.
Cool. Two quick things about this property I think that are really important. The Osaka Pagoda, which is like the famous tower you'll see in all the pictures of Kyoto. You're really close to it. And one of the valuable things I heard from some other people that stayed there is you're like walkable on one of the side streets to it. And by 10 a.m., that road is like unwalkable because that's like where everyone is like funneling and going to in Kyoto. So like eat breakfast, get out there, and you can walk down there in a matter of a minute or two from the Park Hyatt Kyoto. Go kind of check it out privately yourself, which, is unique, or, you can even do it late at night, like do a post-dinner stroll over there and kind of enjoy and appreciate it without all the crowds. So I do think that's huge. So like location-wise, this Park Hyatt Kyoto seems to be really valuable. And then I think the other thing I want to touch about is there's a lot of hype I think now about these yokons. It's pronounced in English more ryokan, but they call it a yokon in Japan, which is like the Japanese style hotels. I think this hotel is the closest thing to that, where it's like a Western version of a Japanese property. And if you're going to Japan for the first time, or like, the yokons are really cool and they have that same room style as these do, but you're sleeping on these futons kind of on the floor in those and some things. If you're not comfort level, like ready to go do one of those, I think this is like the best of both worlds where you definitely feel transformed. You definitely look at the pictures of this property and you feel like you're in Asia. You feel like you're staying in Japan, but you've got some of these creature comforts of, you can have a Western breakfast. There's a modern gym, but they've got these, perfectly groomed gardens. There's a lot of like floor seating. It has all the feels of anywhere you could be in Japan, which I think is really, I'm mostly jealous you've stayed there and I haven't, but
Yeah,
we'll
I
move
really
on.
enjoyed it. It was probably my favorite hotel while we were in Japan.
Perfect. Next hotel, I want to say like it literally just opened April 2025. So we're fresh out the oven here. Waldorf Astoria Osaka. I really was trying to convince one of our clients to stay here. He picked the St. Regis Osaka for whatever reason, but that's fine. I was hoping to have some more like live and in-person experience to share with you. But this property is brand spanking new. Prices seem to be about $1,000 a night USD right now. It's in the upper floors, the 28th to the 38th floor of the Grand Front Osaka South building in the Yumakaita area of Osaka. It looks great. I love Osaka. If you've never been to Osaka, think of Osaka as Chicago and Tokyo as Japan. I think that's the best juxtaposition of the two cities, if you will. People in Osaka are a lot more like laid back and humorous. There's this joke that I used to see on you walk around and do finger guns to people in Osaka, they'll play dead, like just to anyone. But it just goes to show like they're like less seriousness than like people in Tokyo with their but same with you would think, New Yorkers are very uptight, Chicago's Midwesterners. So I think the whole culture and the way the cities are built really fit. I've never tried that. I don't recommend doing finger guns to people in Osaka, but I watched a YouTube video of this guy who walked around and did it, and everyone would like play dead. It was kind of funny. I don't know how fake it was, but here nor there. I obviously haven't stayed at this hotel as it's only been open a couple weeks, but the entry level rooms are King Deluxes. They're 48 square meters for you American Freedom Units people. The King Corner Suites are 1,000 square feet, which is that's crazy, by Japan standard. That's 1,000 square feet is probably larger than most people's apartments you're going to see every day walking around on the streets. This hotel has 4 dining venues. Cane and Tails, which is a jazz bar, Peacock Alley, which is the all-day lobby bar. And I highly suggest if you're thinking about staying here, go pull up pictures of Peacock Alley. You can do that now, Jamie, while I keep talking. But the views, it's like this huge glass wall, big lobby bar. It's definitely somewhere I want to be having a drink. And they've got Tsukimi. I'm like thinking too much to say this correctly at this point, which is a Japanese restaurant with sushi. And you've got Joël Brazier, which is just an all-day French general restaurant. Looks really cool. But the Peacock Alley lobby bar looks incredible. This is in the Hilton for Luxury program, and it does look very much like a traditional Western hotel. And I'm going to say I was really conflicted here presenting this property because Four Seasons has also opened a new hotel in Osaka, and it's not on the list. And if you'll notice, there's no Four Seasons on this list. And I'm a pretty big Four Seasons homer, and I think you are too, Jamie. Four Seasons in Japan is just not there for me. The properties don't look as incredible and the things. And I was reading a comment about this Waldorf Astoria, and someone even said, and I'm just going to read their comment. They were saying like having stayed at both properties already, which I don't even know how they've accomplished this, but they must have a lot of free time and money to be going around Osaka. They're like, the Waldorf's a much nicer property. And they were like, Four Seasons as a whole in Japan, for whatever reason, just doesn't know what they're doing. I don't know if that's a fair way to put it. It caught my eye as a comment that I found. But I think what it is Four Seasons delivers this excellent level of service everywhere you go. And it's like when you go to countries and cultures that don't have service culture, it's brought into the Four Seasons. Like ideal. And you mentioned with the Park Hyatt, you're running into the best staffs and well-run hotels you've ever seen. So I think Four Seasons loses that edge a little bit, and then you're still paying the price premium. This Waldorf Astoria is 1,000 a night. The Four Seasons Kyoto I was looking is 1,700, and it's like, oof, when I already know I'm going to get Four Seasons level service at the Waldorf just because it's in Japan, it's like, what are you bringing to me that really makes me want to pull the trigger on this 700 a night? So this is an interesting place where I feel like the Four Seasons doesn't thrive as much as it could in other places. Our client that stayed at the St. Regis enjoyed it. He said great service. He did say that the building feels really old, like they definitely are in need of a remodel. So if that doesn't bother you, somewhere else to consider as a property in place here. I'll be curious to see what shakes out. I will say where the Waldorf feels like a very Western city typical hotel, the Four Seasons is kind of a Yokon hotel, a little bit more style. So if that is something you're looking for, that would be a reason probably to head over to the Four Seasons Osaka. You're definitely getting more of like a Japanese feel, like I was talking about with the Park Hyatt Kyoto. So I wouldn't rule it out necessarily, especially if that's what I was looking for. I just think the extra price premium built in is a little bit tricky to dig into. And I think the Park Hyatt Kyoto does it a lot better because it is hard because the Four Seasons Kyoto is also like in a high rise. So it's like you can only do so much of that. Yep. The Park Hyatt Kyoto is in that smaller, longer building, but they do have gorgeous gardens and water and some things. So what is your next property, Mr. Jamie?
I'm going to stay in Kyoto. And this was a tough decision a tough decision on my previous stay because originally I was going to do a split stay. I was going to spend 2 nights here and 2 nights at the Park Hyatt. We were bouncing around so much though that decided to just stick put at the Park Hyatt Kyoto and not have to lug our luggage around to another property. So I am kind of upset that I didn't get to stay here because everyone I've talked to that stayed here has nothing but fantastic things to say.
Okay.
This is kind of a funny fact about our list though. This is probably the oldest property on our list and it was opened in 2014. So kind of hits on, how new a lot of these properties are. So the Ritz Carlton Kyoto opened February 2014. So, a whopping 11 years old. It's 134 rooms and suites. So not a huge property. It's situated right on the Kamagawa River. So all the pictures, it's super picturesque. You look out over the river. You've got the mountains in the background. It looks like a beautiful spot. Location wise, it seems pretty central. So it's easy to get to Gion, Nishiki Market, Kyoto Imperial Palace. So location-wise, I think it's a really fantastic location to do some sightseeing. I love Nishiki Market. Tons of shopping and food and really good, delicious stuff to do there if you're staying there. This does kind of blend some of that, when I look at the rooms, a little bit more like the traditional Japanese type aesthetics, but you've got all the modern luxuries that you'd expect from Ritz-Carlton. One of the cool things that I really liked about this hotel, it has a really nice indoor pool, looked beautiful. If you're traveling, I don't remember what the hours and stuff are with kids, but I believe they have like family hours and things like that. That's one thing. I mean, we were traveling during the summer. Having an indoor pool or a pool in general is not something a ton of properties have. So that is a nice feature, particularly if you're traveling with family. That's a nice option there.
And just a note too, if you don't know this, pretty much any place you're going to be swimming in Japan will require a swim cap.
That's a good shout out there.
The Ritz does say they provide them. Some hotels I've seen charge for them too. And I would also say if you have a younger kid, maybe buy one on Amazon and have them wear one once beforehand. So it's not just totally like a
traumatic experience.
Yeah, it's just something to think about.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm trying to think what else. Tons of good dining options here. You've got Mizuki, La Locanda, Pierre Hermes Paris Boutique. So that's got like pastries and desserts and stuff like that. That looks good. Then you've got the lobby lounge where you can do afternoon tea and some light snacks and stuff like that. But the lobby lounge, from the pictures I've seen, have really cool views of like the waterfall and some, just a really nice like Zen looking kind of area to hang out and have some afternoon tea. Room wise, room wise, these are some.
Good. Go ahead.
Similar to the property you hit last. Some of the bigger rooms, I think they start around 500 square feet for a base room, and then go up from there. So you've got really large rooms as far as like Japan goes.
If all things were equal, would you get a week stay? You had to go back. Would you do Park Hyatt Kyoto or would you consider the Ritz?
I mean, just because I like staying at new places, I would definitely do the Ritz. Like, I think they were, I don't think one necessarily is going to be better than the other. One's a little bit newer. So if you're looking for, a newer property, sure, Park Hyatt's, 5, 6 years newer. But as far as service and quality and everything, I think they're going to be right kind of on that same level.
The Ritz does feel a little further out from some tourist spots. Is that true-ish, you feel like? Is it just a different part of
I
the
think it's a
town?
different part. So, thinking about the Park Hyatt, it was great for like the stuff that was right there. It wasn't easy to get to like Nishiki Market and some of the more like
Mm.
central Kyoto type things, where I think the Ritz, on the other hand, is probably closer to that type stuff, but then going to be further away from what's it, Higashiyama, all the shop or the, kind of the older temple things and stuff like that we went to.
Got it. So it's really just which one of the things are you going to be closer to and further from versus
Yeah.
like one being much better than the other. Okay.
What we got next?
We are going far, far away to Okinawa, which one of our shorts on Okinawa, I think, is our most played. I think we have a shorts like over 250,000 views on Okinawa. I didn't realize it was such a stunning and interesting place. I feel like when I went there, most people I talked to didn't even know what it was. Oddly, it is very far south. Like it's way further than you think. It's a couple hour flight from Tokyo. There is a lot of American military bases, just a large American presence. Like I rented a car there, a Honda Jazz, which is a Honda Fit here in America. And there's like two or three completely Western radio stations, which are really interesting that you could just tune into. And there's a place called America Town, which I definitely recommend anyone go to if they're on the main part of Okinawa. I stayed at the Hyatt Regency that is there, that is also relatively new, Hyatt Regency Sensai, I want to say. That's not what I'm reviewing, but it's just a good shout. We just had so many Hyatts I wanted to move about. And it is Park Hyatt level quality with the Hyatt Regency name. There's also Intercontinental if you're a big IHG guy that's pretty close to it. Now there's two Hyatt Regencies. Make sure you do the island one, not the city one. Just, there's a big difference between the two for sure. We're going to go to a place called Miyakojima, and it is a island off of Okinawa. So it's like a remote island paradise outside of the remote Okinawa. And the Rosewood has just arrived there and built an immaculate property. It opened March 1st, 2025. Just began
You're going
accepting.
lots of new ones.
Yeah, but that's what I'm telling you. It's like everything is happening right now in Japan. I obviously have also not stayed here, but let me tell you, this is so high on my list. The build out and the property looks incredible. This is the very first Rosewood hotel to open in Japan, which is kind of crazy, I feel like, when you really, think about it and how much of a presence that they have everywhere. The property is 55 villas. When you look at some of the images around this place, if I just randomly shot you some pictures of this property, you would be like if I sent you a selfie from where, I imagine some of this island is, you would think that I were in the Maldives, the Seychelles. I mean, this place looks stunning. I haven't been there, but let me tell you, Rosewood, I think never has let me down on food and beverage. And Japan is also really good at food and beverage. So I feel like the combo of those two are incredible. Okinawa culturally, the people there are much bigger pork eaters. So I don't know if that will translate to this property, but I imagine if you're into pork, you'll probably have some, you feel right at home here. There's not a ton to find out about this place, but when I click around, the more and more I look at, I really, really like it. They do offer some different ways you can get to the island because you have to fly into Okinawa and then access this hotel. But
Question: are all these rooms like individual little villas? It looks like almost. Am I looking at the right
yeah,
property? That looks really cool.
that is what I've seen. It's exactly it. Yeah, and it's got these really vivid blues in the water. I mean, Okinawa does too, but this looks even more so. And to be honest, I've never even really considered these islands outside of Okinawa before. And I felt like Okinawa was a little bit remote, and this is like a whole different level. And there are houses you can also book, Jamie, if you really, like private pools, multi-bedroom. I mean, they're small by American standards for a house. They're 1,600 feet, but once again, in Japan, that's pretty big. The smallest room you're getting here is a 645-foot villa. It seems like everything is either ocean view or beachfront as well, which I do like. And the place looks really cool. If it's anything like Okinawa, it's lots of sea turtles. There's a time period of the year where I think there's a lot of whale migration going through here. And I mean, this turquoise blue water looks
It does.
incredible. Now, realistically speaking, there is a Miyakojima airport, which says it's 20 minutes by car. They offer private aviation options, for our very well-to-do clients, but I didn't really dig into where you can get to from Miyakojima. I imagine you might have to go to Okinawa and over. There might be a couple flights from the Osaka domestic or like Haneda, but I think it would be really hard for you to fly all the way to Japan to go here. But I think as part of like a 1 to 3 week itinerary, I would love to sneak
Yep.
3 or 4 days in here, just do something completely opposite. And now, interestingly, too, if you're not in Japan, Okinawa is pretty easy to tag onto. You are realistically way closer to Taipei than you are Japan. You're closer to, you're way closer to like the Philippines, almost Vietnam. You're equally as far from like Seoul. So don't necessarily think you've got to make this Japan trip because it's so far. I think the last trip my wife did when we went to Okinawa as part of our honeymoon, which I'd mentioned, we did Tokyo, Okinawa, Taipei. We just kind of kept going in a line through Asia. Something to think about, but man, like, yeah, another brand new property. I really want someone to stay here and let us book them so we can learn more about it and get some real world feedback, but it's definitely on my list. What do you got next, Jamie?
That place sounds awesome. I'd like to get back to Japan sometime soon because this property that I'm also going to hit on is kind of similar. It's one that it's kind of on my list. It's a little bit off the beaten path. It's not, it's not your typical Osaka, Tokyo, Kyoto type location. It is the Ritz Carlton Nikko. And I actually had a friend stay here about a year or so ago, and I saw his pictures and I was like, man, that looks really awesome. And I was trying to figure out if I could tack that onto my trip last year, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to what we were doing. It is probably about 2 hours or so, plus or minus, north of Tokyo.
Okay.
It's located in the Nikko National Park, right on the lake. I'm going to say this wrong, Lake Shuzenzi. And it's actually the first Ritz-Carlton that features an onsen that I was reading about. So that's fairly unique. The spa here with the onsen looks amazing. If you pull up some pictures, it just looks next level. Tons of, nature, views of the lake. So it's super picturesque. This is not in a big city, so this is all about kind of nature and natural beauty. So there's tons of like hiking and walking there. You can do paddle boarding on the lake. There's cycling trails, so they have bikes you can take around and go around. If you're hiking, it says that 5 minutes away there's a 97-meter waterfall, just a 5-minute walk from the hotel. I mean, it just looks beautiful. The lake looks beautiful. The property's beautiful. The spa there looks fantastic. This would be a great spot if you were, I'm sure the kids would love it too, because it seems like there's a lot to do, but get to spend a day or two in the spa, going with your spouse, just relaxing. I think that would be a really, really nice spot. It is not a huge property. It's under 100 rooms. I think it's 90 some rooms. All the rooms look, it's a newish property, opened in 2020. So you've kind of got like the Japanese minimalist kind of motif in the rooms, but you've got great views of the lake on some of the higher floors, mountains. Some of the walkout rooms, I believe, have like little kind of like Zen gardens off the rooms. But yeah, it looks fantastic. But this would be a good one to add on, right? If you're a multi-week trip in Japan, you can get out of the city, spend some time here, kind of just relax. Hopefully next trip I could sneak this in for a couple nights, maybe 2 or 3 nighter.
Yeah, word to the wise, it looks like they're getting a lot of snow in the winters. And this trip, accordingly, especially if you don't like snow. I've noticed a lot of people there's a lot of like fishing and excursion ideas to do as well in that lake. And then it almost seems like leaf change season is when you really want to be at this hotel. Like looking at that mountain and lake when it reminds me of like the Blue Ridge Mountains almost, or something like that.
Yep.
With all the,
I can see that.
leaf change and colors. I'm sure I've insulted a swarm of people comparing rural into the Blue Ridge Mountains, but that was the first place that came to my mind. It does look like they have king beds, which you got to watch out for in Japan. That's always exciting. I like it. I mean, what do you just come out here as like a rural retreat, or are you just maybe driving around Japan and park a few days here?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm thinking. The person I know that went just went and stayed at the hotel. I think they did 2 nights there, and I don't even know that they left the hotel to do anything else other than like what's right there.
Okay.
I will say, you talk about the snow. It does say during the winter they have snowshoeing, ice climbing, cross country skiing. So there are activities in the winter, and some of the spa pictures I saw are in the winter. And I believe they have like an open air section. I saw people like sitting in the hot springs with the snow around it, and it looked beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. It's interesting. What's give me a ballpark. What's average nightly rates going for here?
It's a great question. I actually think this one is a pretty reasonable as far as Ritz Carlton goes because I remember pricing it out last summer. I'm just looking at some random rates in June. Let's see what we're looking at.
I feel like I didn't have a good concept. We didn't touch it on some of the other ones
No,
too, but
yeah, we didn't. That's fair.
I feel like some of them you have a pretty good idea, but this one being so remote,
See what this is
I
in
was like
USD
a little more puzzled.
coming. I'm hoping I'm pleasantly surprised. Base room starts at 784 a night just for some random dates in June. So, I mean, as far as Ritz Carlton goes, I don't feel like that's too bad for what you're getting here.
And that's probably the cheapest hotel of these eight we're talking about,
Yeah, I
realistically
would probably agree with
speaking.
that. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Interesting. You wrapped up on Ritz Carlton there?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think this is one you'd kind of tag on to a longer trip and just kind of spend a few days out here hanging out.
Perfect. Well, now that you've knocked out the cheapest hotel on this list, I'm going to bring us the most expensive hotel on this list, without a doubt. It is the Aman Tokyo, 84 guest rooms and suites. It's right, if you know Tokyo somewhat well, you're right Imperial Palace adjacent, which also brings us to an interesting point. The nicer of the Four Seasons in Tokyo is also very close to this train station. In fact, it's on top of the train station. I think this is one of those cases where I think the Four Seasons doesn't work here as well because Four Seasons seems to be in about the 16 to $1,900 a night ballpark USD, and the Aman is about 1,900 to 2,100 a night USD. And as much as I'm a Four Seasons apologist, I think anytime I can stay at an Aman for $200 more a night, I think I'm going to go Aman. And just if you compare, if you don't know anything about the properties, if I sat my 4-year-old daughter down and I clicked on all the images of each of these properties and the hotels, she would, I think, be like, "Oh, the Four Seasons is way cooler." And the Four Seasons is like over exaggerated architecture. Like the lobby must be 70 feet high. I mean, it looks like in the pictures and stuff. And the spa just looks incredible. And they've done such a good job when you're on more of the ground floors of this hotel of making it look like you're not in a skyscraper. They've got these big, lush gardens everywhere. The gym, I will say, looks like it's suitable and it had everything in it that I'm generally looking for. Although I didn't see any kettlebells, but you had free weights, treadmills and the whatnot. But I feel like it lacked a little to be desired in the $2,000 price range. There were some better gyms I maybe saw. You've just got the spa looks really good. The rooms are incredible. But man, you're also asking people, a lot for $2,000 a night. And this would definitely be like my splurge stay, or if you're just, not really on a budget, or if you've never heard of a budget, this is definitely where you want to be in Amman. I will say you looking at some of these suites. Garden View suite is 764 square feet. And then you've got some of the bigger ones. Tokyo suite is 829 square feet. And then you've got complimentary in-room refreshments that include everything except alcohol, which, that is always appreciated. And some of these pictures of the rooms, like in these garden rooms, they're showing these incredible window views of Tokyo, and you're in a high building. The Imperial Palace is nearby, so you have a great line of sight. And they've got some incredible shots, too, of Mount Fuji in the background. You also get complimentary wellness classes. Amman is a very big wellness property. They have Japanese-style baths, steam rooms, 30-meter indoor pool. I touched on the fitness center. And so I like it. It has a little bit of the rooms are very Japanese. They're very like basic, very Zen-like in a way. There's not really anything over complicated or going about them. It's like, I guess Aman kind of represents understated luxury, I think is what we touched on when we were talking about the Colorado property in another podcast. And I think they do it well here. And I think if you really get to the point where you're just, this is your like full send trip or you're just in a stratosphere, they've got some signature suites here, including the panorama suite, which already you've got these, you're just talking stunning views. It's 1,500 square feet in Japan, which is crazy. And it's got this humongous, like full marble soaking tub in this room that seems to span, like it's placed in front of some of these glass windows on this tower. And like I said, you're just, I mean, how cool is that? You're in this humongous marble tub. Unfortunately, you're not overlooking Imperial Palace. It looks like you're overlooking the city. I think it'd be really cool to be like in a big tub overlooking the Imperial Palace, being like, yeah, that guy used to be king 1,000 years ago, and now I'm just in a tub over his castle. What can you do? But man, if you need ultra luxury, I think there's no other place I would look. There are residents here too, and then as far as dining goes, they've got quite a few options. From a dining perspective, I don't know why their website is loading terribly slow here. I was trying to make sure I had the names down of these.
Yeah. The pool looks really nice here.
Yes, I really do like the pool. The cafe by Amon too is where they've built it into this like forest, if you find the photos of that. And that's like an all-day tea and pastries type place. There is a place called Musashi, which is a intimate 8-seat cypress counter with master chef, which is omasake sushi in a traditional style. So that's very cool. There is on floor B2, which I'm going to take as the basement. There is a homemade breads and pastries. It seems, very French style up alley. And then there is a Southern Italian restaurant called Arva at the Aman Tokyo, which looks like it's up on a high floor. So you could probably stay here and never leave, which I think Tokyo is a great place to explore, which may be an argument of why you wouldn't want to stay here, but maybe perhaps do a 2-3 night stay in, wellness, live it up, stay here, and then you could sneak over to another property that's not as nice while you're exploring. But either way, I think just from an experiential standpoint and just the way this thing is built out, I think I would have to take this over Four Seasons, especially as the prices seem to be pretty consistently
I would agree with you.
Close here. Yeah. We went from cheapest to most expensive real fast there. What's your last property, Jamie?
So this is funny that we're saying that. This is going to be the cheapest and the most expensive, depending when you decide to visit. This is such a drastic price swing. So we are going to talk about the Park Hyatt Niseko. So during the summer, this place can be booked for $40 per night, base rate. During ski season, you're looking at about $2,400 per night base rate for the same room. So that is a crazy price swing for the same hotel. Based on that, you can pretty much guess that Niseko, Japan is a place that you are going to go skiing. So that is the big draw for this. If I go to Japan to ski, this is where I would absolutely love to be able to stay if I can find it for a reasonable price. Niseko is supposed to be one of the best places in the world for powder. They get like tons and tons of feet every single year. So if you're going to Japan for skiing, this would be the luxury option that you want. So Niseko, Japan gets about 25 feet of snowfall annually, which is a ton. Japan is known for having some of the best powder in the world. So if you're coming here to ski, Park Hyatt Niseko is a great option. Now on the flip side, if you want to get a great Park Hyatt stay for a really good value, I could see you coming here, whether it's summer, spring, or fall, when you can book this property much cheaper. I was just pulling up some like different things that you may have to do, right? So I know if you go out to Colorado or things like that, there's lots to do during the summer as well. But there's a ton of stuff here. So there's zip lining, there's like different ropes courses you can do. There's a lake there, so you can do tea experience on the lake. They've got fishing, canoeing, donut boat rental, which I had to look up a picture what donut boat is. It's kind of like, it looks like a giant bumper boat, but it sits like 4 people in it. Looks really cool. They've got golf. The property has a really nice looking spa. Or one thing that I really like about this property, anytime you're going to go, is they've got rooms that are not much more expensive than a base rate room. So I just pulled up during the summer. Your base rate is like 240 something. So for 440-ish, you can go into a one bedroom residence with an onsen bathtub, which is over 1,000 square feet. The layout is really cool. You've got this really neat like onsen bathtub with views looking out over, mountains or the lake or whatever's outside there. Um, I think it would be a really cool option to go off season and stay in some of these rooms and experience, a really nice luxury hotel for a reasonable price. You could even do a two-bedroom penthouse with two king beds and private bath. You're like $800 a night. Like there's some really cool rooms for really reasonable pricing in the off season. Lots of dining options here, surprisingly, for not a massive property. So you've got, I mean, it lists 5 or 6 different restaurants on property, from a French Michelin-starred chef to traditional Japanese to sushi or just a lounge and bar option. So tons of different dining options. Aesthetically, I mean, the property is beautiful. It gets really good reviews. It's one that I really would like to stay at. I'd love to get out here for ski season, but on the flip side, if I could get a really good deal during the summer and I could tack this onto a trip to Japan already, it may be worth swinging out there to check out.
Thank you so much for that, Jamie. I'm a little tight on time. I got to sneak out of here, but link in bio. We'd love to help you guys book this trip or any trip you guys have coming up. Message us, give us a shout, and we'll see you guys next week. Later.
See ya.